Hi, friends. So, you know that I do my lives in the dark, and part of it is because on this channel I speak about the divine feminine, and the darkness symbolizes the womb, the mystery. Uh, and I like it better actually to speak in the dark. And this life is going to be exactly about that. How much our culture is obsessed with the outer. And now, when we meet somebody, naturally, we focus on how they look and their age and, their features. And then the questions are, oh, what do you do for a living? Like what house that person has, a car, where they live, what do they drive, what kind of job, what kind of title. And we seem to determine the value of a person based on the outer, on the masculine principle, on the external success that they have and looks and possessions. But we don't focus somehow so much on the inner of how do you really feel and what are your values and your virtues and um, your beliefs. Uh, And even when it comes to beliefs, it's more about what religion you follow or what spiritual teacher, but not so much about the individual person. But again, we try to classify it into something outer, into rules, into regulations, into mm, a system of some kind. Um, but uh, the inner will be becoming more and more important. And that's what I like to focus on. I'm fascinated by the inner. And it's so interesting to me how a lot of times the inner doesn't correspond to the outer, and the outer can be very deceiving. And I believe the whole thing about, life is to be able to be in that balance. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. And it's fascinating if we examine the motivations of a person, the beliefs that drive a person to do certain things. And uh, that gives us an insight, the feelings, the where do they come from, the traumas, the things that they have suppressed that drive them. For example, if a person doesn't feel good about themselves and they have inferiority complex, um, they will try to compensate with things on the outer and try to gain respect by building up a reputation and by collecting things on the outside in terms of titles and, like possessions so people can respect them. But if they're driven by that lack of self respect and that feeling of inferiority, no matter how much they collect and accumulate on the outside, it will never be enough and they will continue and develop, like this greed uh, because they do not give to themselves the thing that they seek, but they seek it on the outside. Or why does a certain person want to date another person? Uh, I can tell you, like a lot of men who approach me, uh, the motivations are loneliness, lust. They think I'm gonna look good next to them and make them look better in social situations. Uh, my inner state, joy, love, which they do not have, and they believe that if they attach me to them, they're gonna have that. And a lot of things that are not really what I believe a good motivation to be in a relationship with somebody. Um, where like it would be better to like really enjoy the person and get to know them and not be focused on the outside. Uh, but if you're more aware of the inner, uh, then you begin to see a lot of times people are unaware of their own motivations, but you can feel, are they driven by fear or are they driven by love? Are they driven by lack and that's why they try to like get things and do things? Or are they driven by genuine passion and abundance and the desire to share? So to me, all of these things are very interesting, and also certain beliefs that we hold that have been passed down to us from the previous generations. And for example, we want to accomplish something in our lives, but somehow it's not working. And even if we examine, if we go back to relationships, if we examine the examples that we've been given, I can realize I don't want to have children because maybe your childhood sucked and your parents had a lot of things that were unresolved that got passed down onto you. But if you go inward and work with those traumas, um, you can unravel them and heal from the whole thing, which healing is nothing else but coming back into that innate wholeness that we have of unlearning a lot of things and peeling back layers and beliefs we've inherited and patterns that were never ours to begin with, but we needed them for our survival. And even with survival and thriving, there are a lot of people that come from a place of lack and limitation and fear, worry, and anxiety. And it seems like their life is all together and they have the job and the house and the car and everything, and even the marriage and the kids. But their inner state is one of constant fear and anxiety that they might lose it if they don't keep working, or this idea of being a martyr or a victim. And they can never enjoy any of the things that they have, and they never pause to celebrate a certain achievement because the anxiety of no, no, I have to keep working. And so it's really interesting as a person motivated by the idea to thrive and enjoy life, or the idea that they need to suffer in order to be worthy of the things that they have. And when we pay more attention to the inner and take time for ourselves to journal, to meditate, to be in quiet contemplation, to really sit with ourselves and figure out why do we do the things that we do and what is it that we truly, truly want and what truly satisfies us, we may come up with something entirely different than what we have been doing prior. Because we may realize that the things that we really like are not at all what society is trying to push onto us and make us think that we need to have. And our passions are completely different, and our desires are completely different, and our motivations are completely different. So for me, it's very much worth examining, and also worth teaching emotional intelligence and the ability to sit with strong emotions and alchemize them. And a lot of times, those emotions are very difficult to be conveyed through words. So it's important to know how we can move them through movement, through exercise, through making art, through dance, singing, whatever it is. And this stage of evolution we're shifting into is really beautiful because we are realizing more and more how the inner is affecting the outer and how our thoughts, feelings, and imaginings are creating the reality that we see because they create this inner matrix through which we interpret reality. And reality is open to interpretation, what we call reality. Nobody's experiencing the exact same thing. So for me, that's very fascinating how, based on our inner states, we experience reality differently, and how one and the same event can be interpreted in so many different ways by different people. And the things that motivate people, and how a lot of times somebody can look really good on the outside, but they can be a rotten apple on the inside. And the other way around, how somebody on the outside can look like they're no one and they have nothing, but they can be full of pure joy and bliss and be totally enlightened. And I have this profound inner peace and awareness that all is one and wishing no harm to anyone. Uh, so yeah, it's very interesting to me, all of that. And uh, hopefully you do spend some time on examining the inner and the invisible, and go into those realms of yourself, which, the deeper you go, the deeper it gets. And it can stretch in the past and in the future with the realization that all is now. And it can be a very exciting and interesting exploration, which leads to the outside life becoming as a total adventure from a movie or a book that only you can interpret for yourself, with all these signs and synchronicities and pockets of meaning that open up just for you. Uh, and yeah, whoever lives in the deep has a really rich life and cannot be understood by the people that live on the surface. But like an Iceman said, the personal life deeply lived expands into truths beyond itself. The deeper we go, the deeper we know not just ourselves, but human nature in general. And we can see deeper into people, and know them better than they know themselves, which is really interesting. Hi, Jamie. So I think that's where I'm going to stop. But yeah, the inner is very, very fascinating. Naturally, it's related to the outer. And that relationship is very, very fascinating. And learning to see inside of yourself leads to the ability to be able to see inside other people.